Satnam, and welcome to the Lunar Living Transmission in Astrology for the week of June 22nd, 2026. I'm Kulina Kasa, Satmom, SATMOM.com. I help people cultivate authentic connection through lunar living, embodied wisdom, and relational awareness, so we can expand our capacity for meaningful relationship with ourselves and others. I'm here today with my soul sister, Eleni Prinsloo. Welcome, Eleni. Eleni is our resident astrologer. She's a powerful healer and much more. Thank you, Eleni, for coming in and sharing with us the astrology this week.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So this is a really cool week for us. So we're just going to quickly jump into the fact that the 21st, Sunday, we have the sun entering Cancer. And so that kind of kicks us off for the week. We will have the solstice, and we know that within astrology, the energy and the Cancerian solstice, the shift that it brings in for us is that it helps us to move away from more of that logical, kind of chatty Gemini energy, right? A lot of the mind. And it helps us to kind of drop into our emotional depth. So intuition, self-care, nurturing, and it helps to kind of push us to start to build more loving and secure foundations for the rest of the year coming up, right? So we are going to be speaking about the astrology specifically for the 22nd of June up until the 28th of June. And so on the 21st, as we've mentioned, the sun moves into Cancer. And so let's just quickly have a look at that. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the primary focus will be on understanding how the moon is moving, understanding how the sun is expressing, and kind of utilizing both the internal and external energies to help us to create a little bit more of that Cancerian nature that resides within all of us, right? Cancer is the sign of emotional security, home, safety, ancestry, nurturing, the divine feminine, the divine mother, inner healing, inner child, belonging. And so when the sun enters Cancer, we move away from all of this sort of external projection and information, and it's a time to slow down and to go inwards, right? It's kind of reconnecting with our inner aspect of self. So what nourishes us? Where do I belong? What makes me feel safe? What is my emotional body wanting and needing right now in order to feel deeply taken care of? So the good idea and good things on how to work with this energy is the sun is how we express. And so if our inner world is being expressed through us to our outer reality, it will be flavored with Cancerian qualities. So we may express more from an emotional place. We may seek more emotional safety. We may seek more nurturing. We may seek more a deeper desire to express our needs and our wants and our ways of moving through this week through creativity rather than logic or information or even verbal communication. It's more the expression of us will be more watery, more soft, more nurturing, more flowy. And so that is sort of how we start the week. The moon will be in Libra on I think the 22nd. And this is going to be the first quarter moon. And the first quarter moon is obviously when, the moon is exactly half. So we can see half of the moon's visibility. One part of the moon is in light, one part of the moon is in shadow. And that is also what Libra is. It's about that balancing, right? And so, what does the first quarter moon invite us into? So, it's about taking action, decision making. It's, kind of pausing between, it's like I would say it's a moment between, it's a halfway point between the new moon and the full moon, right? And so it's time for us to look at the obstacles that we have perhaps placed in our path. Where do we need to create a bit more balance? Where do we need to see through our doubts? Where do we need to make adjustments? Where do we need to pivot and kind of, shift direction? Where do we need to adjust? And that's sort of the energy of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's adjusting and finding balance through taking care of and nurturing ourselves and the people we care about, allowing ourselves to express our emotions in a healthy way. Please do remember that Cancer does have a tendency from its shadow expression to be emotionally reactive, as in overreactive, as in clinging to the past, victim consciousness, overgiving, codependency, seeking external validation for emotional security, right? But in its highest expression, it's having and embodying emotional intelligence and compassion and empathy and having healthy, nurturing structures and boundaries in place. It's allowing ourselves to connect to our intuition, to speak through our emotions in a good, solid, and healthy way so that we are able to create more. Cancer is also connected to our creativity. And so I really recommend people start to play um, and do some creative things for themselves. Libra is also connected to beauty and balance. And so, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is a really good time to just get creative, have fun, play, paint, write, journal, take really good care of your emotions and your emotional body, have the compassionate conversations, be a sympathetic ear, be mindful of where you overgive, where you drop into victim consciousness, where you're, emotionally oversensitive. So these are just ways and means though, so that if you clock yourself behaving that way, you can come back, you can regulate, you can shift the energy, and then, you can step up into the higher expressions. Um, Cancer also, again, helps us to feel more connected to our family and to our roots and to our heritage. And so spending time with loved ones is a really good idea as well. They will be that nurturing energy for us to step into. Kalina, is there anything that you would like to add before we move on?
Technicalities. You had mentioned before we started recording about the first quarter moon being in Libra and how Libra is all about balance, and that first quarter moon is exactly half. So that's a beautiful thought right there. How the moon is reflecting that balance of Libra, maybe calling out even more
Yeah,
focus.
exactly. Yeah, because when the sun is in Cancer, we have a tendency to overgive, right? We tend to overmother, over nurture. And so with this first quarter moon, we're being asked to kind of take a pause and to sit between the new moon and the full moon in Libra and kind of look at that balance, right? Where am I overextending? Where am I overgiving? Where am I maybe perhaps too much in my head and not enough in my heart? Where am I overriding my emotions? Where am I overly sensitive? Where do I need to kind of pause, take stock, redirect, adjust, adapt so that I can then move forward with with a more loving, nurturing, supportive, way of expressing myself, my needs, my wants, and my desires.
Absolutely. And if the answer isn't like dropping in immediately, then we can seek out those places where we're feeling resentful
Mm-hmm.
because we overgave and with the expectation, excuse me, with the expectation that somebody else is going to overgive back to us. And
Yeah.
we're relying on somebody else to overgive in order to balance out our own overgiving and not feel resentful for it. Maybe that's a personal thing, but it's a little doorway right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point to kind of bring into the space as well, because as we know, as we've already mentioned, that first quarter moon energy is about um, confronting obstacles or doubts. And so when we are resistant to adjusting, pivoting if we need to, then this is where we create unrealistic expectations of the people around us, because we're not able to kind of find the balance between caring for self, caring for other, my needs, my wants, your wants. And if I'm just going to keep overgiving and, overextending myself, then the expectation is that with the Libra scales is that, you're going to then give that back to me in equal and, like measured exchange. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and then we become despondent or depressed, or we feel that it's unfair. But it's because we have this expectation that, because I gave you an apple, you need to give me an apple back. But sometimes that's not the reality. And so we need to really be mindful and find that balance within ourselves, where we can notice our behaviors and our patterns, and where we drop into these victimhood and, thoughts and ideas of, oh, but this is not right and this is not fair, and I've given you this and you've given me that, and why haven't you given back to me in equal measure? And so it's noticing these things so that we can start to shift them and become less resistant, and then adjust as we need to.
Yeah, and a lot of these expectations are totally nonverbal. We've never communicated them. We don't even clearly communicate them with ourselves. So just noticing where our hidden agendas are kind of running the show. It's not a bad thing. It's just something that was created that served us earlier that's no longer serving us. So those assumptions are now going to take away from us and maybe reactivate old stories, because we're just by the assumption we're kind of actively calling on that old story, not knowingly. So great time to dive into, um, where is this assumption coming from an old story, especially as the moon moves into Scorpio next. It will help us reveal that next layer
Yeah,
as well. I'll let you go with that one.
yeah, 100%. So on the 24th, that is when the moon will be entering Scorpio. And so this you will actually find that when the moon moves through Scorpio, it's in a trine to the sun, because the sun's going to be in Cancer, right? And so the moon will be in a trine in Scorpio. So after we've kind of had the Cancerian expression, remember that the moon is always your inner world expressing through your sun, right? And so internally, what we are experiencing is, I need more balance, I need more peace, I need more harmony, I need more ways in which to create more equality in my relationships, within my home, within my family. And then it shifts out of Libra into Scorpio. So now that I've become aware of the habits and the patterns, and I've looked at the little triggers and, everyday things that I've been noticing the last couple of days, now I get to transform it. Scorpio is about transformation. It's about letting go of the old. It's about stepping into the unknown. It's about seeking um, reclamation. It's letting go of old, outdated things that are now ready to kind of die off, so that something new can be born, something different. So it gives us an opportunity to go into our unconscious, subconscious parts of us, where we are trying to dominate or control or manipulate. These are all shadow expressions of Scorpio, right? And so we're able to then bring awareness and compassion, Cancer. We're able to bring compassion and nurturing and love to these aspects of us that we are starting to see come up, where we may be trying to dominate people, or, members of our family or our community. Maybe we're controlling, maybe we're possessive, maybe we're jealous. Maybe we need to be, maybe we expect people's behaviors to be a certain way, and when they don't respond or react or behave the way that we want them to, then, we become upset or frustrated or whatever it may be. And so when we notice these behaviors, we can actually bring compassion, and we can bring nourishment. We can heal these wounded aspects of us, the inner children, the lost parts. And so it's like, Robin Hood, um, not Robin Hood, what is it? Peter Pan, where, like you can call the lost boys home. You can call these lost parts and pieces of you home, and you can nurture them. You can love them. You can be in
Mm.
in grace with them. And also you can use your natural innate creativity to bring them up to the surface, to make them seen, so that when the moon then enters into Sagittarius on the 26th, you've gained the wisdom. Sagittarius is wisdom. It's
Mm.
higher learning, it's
If we
understanding, it's
used the
philosophy.
Scorpio time, sorry to interrupt you, but if we use the Scorpio time to root down into that thing and really see what's going on within us, not to project it onto other people. If we've projected, once we get to Sagittarius, we're egotistical, we're aloof, we're kind of a jerk. So we need to take that Scorpio energy, not to project, but to anchor into what's really true with us. And it doesn't have to feel pretty. It's totally cool because Scorpio can sit with that space that's not pretty or project it right back onto other people really belligerently. So we have to consciously make that choice with Scorpio to take it within and not project out in order to then get to Sagittarius and the blessing. Just wanted
Yeah,
to add that.
exactly. Because in Sagittarius, you gain the wisdom from it, right? You gain the inspiration from it. You gain the spiritual experience where you're like, oh, I can actually embody the gnosis of it. I can embody the medicine of it. Look, this experience taught me something. And it's not just surface level, like curiosity, like mind, like, okay, this is it. It's like, oh, there's more to this. Oh, this is why I'm responding this way. Oh, now I get to understand it and I can actually embody it and I can take the medicine from it and I can move forward from that. And so this is sort of how our inner reality. So remember that your natal moon also shifts and changes, and you have progressed moons and you have you have a variations of moons and things, but ultimately your innate natal moon placement likes to express in a certain way. And when
Interesting.
the moon,
So like my moon is in Capricorn, so that's a particular earthy energy. So if
correct,
somebody's moon is in Cancer, totally different type of way we express from within.
correct.
Okay.
And now when the moon is moving into Libra, which is about balance, your innate processing system, so I want things to be slow and I want things to be steady and I like routine and I like structure and I don't feel rushed and there has to be a sense of creation for, it has to have meaning. I don't want things, like I don't want instant gratification, you know? And so now with the moon in Libra, it's like, okay, so the normal way that you view life through and experience your own inner world through, it takes on the flavor of Libra. And so it's like, okay, so I like things to be slow. So how can I create more balance around that? Where am I pushing? Where am I rushing? Where am I not in alignment with my innate expression? And so it flavors your unique inner world. And so sometimes we don't always notice this because when we go about everyday life and everyday stuff, we can miss the subtlety of how the moon moving through the different signs plays out in us through our own inner moon and through our own inner world and through our own inner expression. And especially when the sun is in Cancer, it takes on a flavor of my inner system is wants to talk, but I need more balance and I want transformation and I want wisdom. So, but the expression of that is it's more emotional because it's Cancer. And so this is something that people may be experiencing and they may find themselves in this week is that, things are a little bit more emotional. You may be feeling a bit more emotional. You might be more outspoken around what you need, what your safety needs are. You might feel inspired to create. Cancer is unbelievably creative, like artistic in nature. Cancer, I've noticed something with Cancerians is they love writing, journaling. People
Mhm.
with strong Cancer placements, they love like writing poetry and storybooks. They're like the storytellers of the zodiac, right? And then Scorpio is more artists in the sense of like pottery and painting and that kind of stuff. And Pisces is more like your music, and your theatrical arts. That's kind of the difference. So any water sign is very, very artistic and really talented in that way, but Cancer has got a real knack for words. And so your words can support you in expressing all of these inner things as you go through the week, which is a perfect segue into Gemini moving into Mars moving into Gemini as well, right?
Yeah.
So this is
Um,
going to be
sorry, honey.
based.
It's like I just want to drop one more thing into the Cancer energy. Sorry about that.
Mm,
And that I just noticed viscerally in my body, like this may be more emotional, and like the fear of being overly emotional and the dishonor of emotion. So I just wanted to
mm,
bring that to the surface too. This is a really important time to honor emotion, but also process it properly. Honoring emotion is not projecting it
yeah.
out at the person that it seems is causing the emotion. The honoring the emotion is taking accountability for the fact that the emotion is inside of you and somebody else triggered it. So what does that mean for you? So, bringing that inside instead of getting too caught up in emotion or being scared of our own emotions. It's a good time to
Being
be
lost in it.
more present with it, with the processes of emotions. And if it feels like a lot, get to nature. Nature can hold our emotions. And nature doesn't count our words like other humans do. If we have crazy words, nature can absorb them. Other humans are not necessarily meant to. So being conscious of how we want to move that emotion. Thank you, Eleni.
Yeah, so I do agree with you. It's important for us to allow ourselves to feel our emotions, right? Because we have a tendency like to suppress that. And a lot of Cancerian people tend to hide their emotions because they don't want to be vulnerable and they kind of live in that shell. So I agree with you that it's good to feel your feelings and to express that and not to get lost in it and not be afraid to be vulnerable. So you have the two extremes. It's like either a complete like, over emotionality or hiding your feelings and like suppressing your emotions and pretending that you're a robot and that you don't get sad. So it's just really finding that balance again, using this Libra energy to find that balance, Scorpio to transform the beliefs that it's not safe for me to feel and express myself, whether that's my creativity or my mothering side or my nurturing side or my loving side or any and all of those things, and then gaining the wisdom from that through Sagittarius. And so again, when we have, our on the 28th, Mars is entering Gemini. And so this is really, really interesting because Mars in an air sign is very quick, right? We know that Mars represents action and desire and drive and motivation and willpower and, wanting to move forward and wanting to get stuff done and wanting to kind of like, pick up and move the stuff forward. And Gemini, we know, is about communication and learning and understanding and curiosity and mental flexibility. And so when Mars, like this fast moving, action oriented, driven planet, comes into the sign of communication and talking and, expressing, it's very quick. So collectively, we start to speak faster and more. We're driven with a sense of curiosity and communication, and we're more mentally active, and we're more restless, and we're interested in learning more, and we want our actions to match our words. And so it's less about just talking the talk. It's now it becomes, well, you're talking something, so where's the action associated with that? You need to put action to your words. um, and so this is again a really good time, like I was mentioning earlier, with regards to the writing and the communicating and the storytelling, and then using this natural Cancerian ability to express and communicate and share and create story and magic, and through that process, Mars and Gemini is fantastic for teaching and public speaking and writing and marketing and networking and learning new skills and sharing information and kind of like doing all of these things. However, again, be mindful because it can also show up as scattered energy and gossip and anxiety and again, reactive communication based on emotional oversensitivity, right? So we want to cultivate emotional intelligence so that we can express and communicate from a place of, instead of it being reactive, we can be responsive and we can be mature, and yet we can also have the courage to speak up if we feel like we have been afraid to communicate, we feel we're too vulnerable to speak. So Mars and Gemini is actually a really positive influence, I believe, that we can really utilize the Martian energy to help us with our communication and our expressing and our thinking and our listening. And so again, just always, as always, there's a little bit of mindfulness there. Again, trying to just find the right balance between the two. So don't drop into, I'm going to talk over you. I'm not going to listen. I'm Mars and I know best. My way is the right way. And I'm going to argue with you just for the sake of arguing. So these things are also ways that the energy can express. And so being mindful of this, right? And not falling into gossip or slander or um, reactive communication where you just kind of shoot words like weapons, but rather that disconnect between, the head and the heart. It's like, no, 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 no. My expression is in Cancer. I can do so with care and compassion. And it can be deeply nourishing and nurturing for both of us if I remember to take a breath and direct my Martian energy in a way that allows me to communicate with certainty and courage and independence. But it doesn't have to be aggressive, and it doesn't have to be like I'm going into war and I'm going to battle everything and everyone, get out of my way. Like that kind of energy, that confidence level, it's great. That's why this time is really good for networking and, for socializing and going out and, marketing. And I would say this is from like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the weekend of the 26th to the 28th will be a really good time to kind of use this, Mars and Gemini energy. And also to have the conversations that you've been avoiding because you've been feeling too scared or too vulnerable or too sensitive. So this is a good time to allow that aspect of you to come through. And we'll talk about the Mercury retrograde and the Jupiter in Leo and, the Capricorn full moon the week after. We kind of want to focus and give everybody digestible bits and bobs so that we don't overwhelm you with too much information coming at you at any given point in time. And so learning how to work with the cycles of the moon as they move through the signs each, 2.5 days, and then learning how to and understanding how the sun is going to express itself, how you and how that will influence you as well. And then also understanding that when Mars moves into Gemini, our way of speaking becomes faster, more bold, more courageous. Actions want to match our thinking and our thoughts. We're not afraid to take action on our ideas and our concepts and, anything that comes up, any ideas that come into your head or, things that you feel inspired to make manifest. This is a really good time to use this energy to become clear on, okay, great, like, oh, I want to learn this thing, I want to do this thing, oh, I have this idea, I'm going to take action on this, oh, I want to say this thing and I'm going to say this thing and I'm not going to be afraid, I'm going to speak up for myself and I'm not going to be vulnerable and I'm not going to be scared and I'm going to use my emotional intelligence. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to talk nonsense. I'm not going to blame everyone. I'm not going to be, self-sacrificing. So it's noticing the tendencies and the behaviors and then using the moon as a way to kind of flavor that expression, right? And so seeking balance, more harmony, more inner balance as well, right? Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's kind of like going into that scorpionic energy, transforming some of the stuff that's there, unconscious habits, patterns, behaviors, etc., and then taking the wisdom from that in Sagittarius. And again, it's a really good time because Sagittarius, again, over the weekend, it'll be matching that Mars in Gemini energy. So it's fun. Remember, Sagittarians aren't just about learning and truth. It's also about adventure and going out and wanting to play and having fun and, being interested in travel and trying new things and having, being loud. And remember that Sagittarius is also the sign of Jupiter. So like it's expanded, it's big, it's in your face, right? And so this is where that Saturnian kind of, not Saturnian, sorry, Sagittarian moon and Mars and Gemini is really good for socializing and social networking and, going out and doing events and marketing things and planning and sort of like looking at things from a larger perspective if you want to action things or put things into place. So first half of the week, slow down, go in, take care of yourself, love yourself, give to yourself, nurture yourself, Don't overextend. Notice the habits, the patterns, the behaviors where you either suppress emotions or regress, or you struggle with your family, or you become a victim, or you blame everybody else for your problems in the world, kind of thing. Where do you suppress your creativity? Where do you like hold back on your talents? So noticing all of these things and then switching the flipping the script and using the energy in its most positive expression to help you become more um, social and outspoken and outgoing towards the weekend. So yeah.
I've got one quick question. How long is Mars going to be in Gemini for?
So Mars in Gemini is going to be there. If I'm not mistaken, it's Mars stays a couple of months in a sign. It doesn't
Got
move
a couple of
as
months to work with that. Um, the thing that's really dropped in over this week, which is, I feel is totally true. So astrology is a divine cosmic story. It's where we get to tap in to the story that the divine is creating for our own evolution. And we can totally see over this week how it builds us. The
yeah.
combinations of the sun and the moon really build us to capitalize on Mars and Gemini come the end of the week with the moon in Sagittarius. It couldn't be designed any better. So this is
Mars
where
is
we get to
moving
tap in
after.
to the cosmic story for each of us and just noticing how beautifully and perfectly it's laid out so that we can get these little pieces to grow. And as we tap into like, oh, I can, you know, deepen into the Scorpio, may not feel great in the Scorpio moon. But if we can stick with it, then we get to, really receive the gift on the other side. So, you know, um, I feel really blessed to be able to tap into the wisdom, to be able
Right.
to use it for each of my weeks so that
Yeah.
I know what's coming in and what kind of qualities and resources I need to call on in myself in order to meet that energy, make the most of it, and really gain something myself for it. So thank you so much, Eleni.
Yeah. But just wanted to let you know that Mars is going to be in Gemini until August.
It's a big
So again,
summer kind of energy for us. In the northern hemisphere, it's a
yeah,
big summer energy for us.
yeah, for sure. And listen, when Mars is in Gemini, people talk a lot, right? Like they tend to boast a lot. They tend to kind of like so. And I'm just putting this out there in case anybody's wondering, because again, our personal planets like Venus and Mercury and those kinds of planets, they kind of tend to stay in a sign for a couple of months, right? It's not like just a week here and a week there. It's a while. Um, so June, July, mid-August, it's Mars in Gemini, and so people may use aggressive words, right? They might speak more aggressively. There may be more threats being made, but it doesn't hold merit. Mars is also going to conjunct Uranus, and that's going to be, a very different kind of unexpected communication that's going to come up for all of us. But, we'll get into that a little bit later, and I don't want to make this video too long so that people can just take what we've already shared, which is already a lot,
Yeah.
um, and
And
then
we've
just kind
talked
of.
about how to be careful with our own words, but also there's the level of what we're choosing to receive from others and how reactive we might get to other people's words and how we might allow other people's words to hit our own nervous system. So stay grounded with that. Be discerning in what you receive, but also discerning in what you have to reject, because in rejection, we're kind of receiving something as well. Whether because we're fighting that energy so much, we end up receiving some of it. So just kind of noticing that piece as well.
They say what you resist persists, right? So if you
Mhm.
keep resisting things and you keep resisting speaking your truth and standing up for yourself and having the tough conversations and nurturing yourself and balancing care for self and others and loving yourself and expressing your creativity, these things will continue to persist. And unless you can use, again, using Mars and Gemini to market and social events and share and have these honest communications, like great. But notice that everything always, this is the Libra, right? It's the scales. Everything always expresses itself in shadow and light, the polarities, the dualities. So our job is to learn to find the balance between the two, so that we're 1 foot in the one and 1 foot in the other, and that we're not, moving from one, oscillating from one extreme to the other extreme to the other extreme. And so it's finding that balance point where we're not dipping,
Mm.
where
So
it's
we're
not
neither,
I'm a failure, I'm a
oh,
victim,
sorry.
it's that kind of thing. I'm keeping quiet and I'm suppressing my words, or I'm super aggressive and I'm just going to blast everyone. It's like finding that balance, like you say, within ourselves and within our nervous system, and like kind of what am I willing to absorb? Do I choose to speak? It's being conscious of your words and your actions and how these things come together and match. So yeah.
So we're neither waiting for perfection to speak, nor are we trying to speak when we're triggered and angry either.
Exactly.
So finding that balance. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So informative for me. I feel like this has been very valuable for me. Let us know in the comments, please. Like, share, subscribe, share it with your friends. Let us know how this hits for you, what it might mean for you in the comments, and leave us a little note. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you next week. Thank you, Eleni. Satnam. See you soon.